I'm 18 and living in Dagenham. It's a quite busy area, so there is normally a lot of people around. This particular night, me and my friend, I'll just call him Jim, we were on our way to camp out at a local park. You were never allowed in there past 10 p.m., so we would have to hide from the park police. The park we were staying at was always busy up until about 9 p.m. Then it turns into a ghost field. Anyway, to the story. We had set out for the park around 8:30, so by the time we got there wouldn't be anyone to grass us up. We arrived and everything went according to plan. We had a tent, snacks, portable DVD player, and Pokemon Go at the ready. It was perfect. 10 p.m. came and we heard the park police shutting up the gates. They're quite loud, so it was always easy to hear the gates creak. Once we were sure the police left, we decided to whip out our phones and play some Pokemon Go. There was a Pokestop in the park, and I had a lure module to use. We had been playing for about a half an hour when we heard a loud bang come from the gate, like someone had ran into it. Dagenham was known for its drunks, so we shook it off as nothing. Cut the long story short, we went back to the tent, watched a couple of action films, and went to sleep. Not even an hour into sleep, and I woke up with a horrible sense of dread, like someone was watching me. I heard some crunching coming from behind the tent. I thought it must have been a fox until I heard it, or should I say them, speak. I managed to make out the words. "They're gonna hear us. Keep your damn mouth shut." I quietly but violently shook Jim to wake him up and told him what I had heard. I needed to make sure I wasn't going crazy, so I made him listen. While listening, his face turned white. The fear spread across his face. He grabbed my arm hard and whispered, "We need to make a run for it. Just trust me." I didn't hesitate. We were quite athletic people, so running isn't really a problem. We slowly unzipped the tent and with one big breath made a mad dash for the gate. We heard pounding footsteps and heavy breathing behind us as a guy shouted in a horrible musky voice, "Slow down, we just want to play with you." And both guys started laughing madly, like seriously, it was just a messed up laugh. We made it to the fence and leapt over with ease. The rest was just a mad dash to my house, which was only around the corner. We made it back, slammed the door, and ran up to my room and peeked out the window. We saw both guys sprint past my house, both holding something metallic. It was hard to see as it was pitch black due to the street lamp being out, go figure. At that moment, I turned to Jim and asked him why he looked so terrified back at the tent. He then went on to explain what he heard the guy say. "You grab the small one, the large one's mine. The bigger they are, the bigger the challenge." That terrified me. We went back to the tent the next morning and found all of our stuff destroyed. The tent was slashed, the portable DVD player was snapped in half, and all of our food was thrown all over the place. We never told anyone. I think we weren't too proud to say that we ran away. All I know is I'm never going camping again. I was walking home from my local job at McDonald's when I decided to boot up Pokemon Go. As I was playing, I decided to stop at my local church because it was a Pokestop, and they have a little rest area for people who like to jog and just hang out. I noticed I was running low on items and decided that I had an hour to kill, so I decided to settle down on one of the steps. About 30 minutes in, I hear a very loud squeak through my headphones and realized it was an old car that had pulled up to the back side of the rest area. I thought nothing of it because I assumed they just pulled up to mooch off the lure, but then I heard a slight click of the door closing. This is when I began to panic because local thieves have become more active since Pokemon Go became more popular in my area. I hear the slight patter of footsteps across the rest area, like someone was trying to be sneaky but would constantly shuffle their feet. Me, being the impulsive idiot that I am, looked at my phone as if I was FaceTiming someone and yelled, "Yeah, Dad, I should have enough gas money for this week. Let me grab my wallet and check though." I thrust my hand into my pocket and whipped out my knife and stood up. Turns out the guy didn't realize I was 6'1", which is considered to be tall for my town. I was 220 pounds. At first I felt bad because I thought it was a local priest telling me that it was time to go home because it was getting late. Then I noticed he had a brick in his hand and he was going to use it to smash my brains in with. To say the least, I was shaken up. I could never figure out why he tried to attack me, because a few seconds later my father, who was returning from work, saw me and was going to give me a ride the rest of the way home when he noticed the guy sneaking up on me. After the guy ran, he was surprisingly fast for an old man. We stayed by his car until the police showed up and then went on with our day. So let's just say I don't want to meet a mentally deranged old man who wants to smash my head in on a regular basis. If you haven't already jumped on the Pokemon Go hype train, consider yourself lucky. For the millions of us who did, listen carefully. This game is more dangerous than you think. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a GPS-based game on your phone where you walk around in real life, locating these cute little monsters to catch. Sounds innocent enough, right? Now when it first came out, I, like many others, was absolutely thrilled to stand outside my lawn for hours, catching different things. It seemed I was just living out my childhood dream, even if I was just catching these stupid-ass purple rats. My house is located in a small suburban neighborhood, pretty far from town, but there were several lakes and woods nearby that made the area quite beautiful. It was really fun to walk through the trails, catching Pokemon. However, there really wasn't much around except for the really common ones my friends already had. I realized there was even more to this game when I discovered gym battles and Pokestops. This got me biking all over town, trying to visit them and collect all the different types of Pokemon I could find. When I finally hit level 5, I joined Team Instinct, excited to finally start battling. This went on for a couple of days. My parents were thrilled that I was spending so much time outside instead of locked up in my room playing video games. I guess I was still playing, but as long as I was outside, my parents didn't care. About a week after I had downloaded the app, I was up late playing Overwatch when I noticed there was a new Pokemon on my nearby list. It was almost 2 a.m., but I figured I'll just be outside for a little bit. I won't go far. I mean, I gotta catch them all, right? I had just finished playing with my friends, so I told them that I'd be right back. When I got outside, I realized the street was pretty well lit, thanks to the multiple streetlights placed throughout the neighborhood. It was comforting. "It'll be okay," I said to myself reassuringly, and began walking in the direction of the coughing. However, I'd made it pretty far, and I noticed he remained at 3 steps. The number of steps indicate how far away it is, from 0 to 3 steps. I then turned back the other way and walked for about 5 minutes before I realized coughing wasn't getting any closer. Slightly frustrated, I decided to head back home when I noticed a new Pokemon had shown up from my nearby list. At first, I wasn't sure what it was. It didn't seem to have a head. It just had these long, thin arms and legs that were attached to its body. Then it hit me. It was a Hitmonlee. I had heard my friends talking about how rare those were, and I quickly got excited. I was pretty far from home, but I was eager to show off to my friends my new Hitmonlee, so I continued down the road. As I proceeded in my quest for the Hitmonlee, I noticed it got closer and closer until I was at the top of my nearby Pokemon list. Glad to know I was on the right track. My excitement quickly turned to hesitation when I realized I had made it to the edge of the woods. I'm a pretty avid horror fan, so I read my fair share of scary stories about the woods, but here I was about to catch a Hitmonlee, so I wasn't about to let some axe murderer or staircases turn me away from continuing down the trail. I reminded myself that it'd be quick and thought of all the glory, bragging to my friends, so I stepped foot into the eerie cluster of trees. Fortunately, a small dirt path had been cleared out, so I didn't have to worry about getting sliced up by a bunch of branches. The path was fairly straight, so I didn't feel the need to turn on my flashlight. This game absolutely slaughters my battery. I followed the path all the way to the clearing, where several picnic tables had been overturned. I shined my screen on them and noticed several large splatters located across the wooden tables. They looked red, but it was hard to tell. Someone must have been playing paintball out here and used these for cover. Pretty good idea if you ask me. At this point, Hitmonlee was only a few steps away, but when I tried to look for a way to keep moving forward, all I was met with was trees. I considered forcing my way through the thick foliage, but I guess I finally got some sense in me and passed it off as a bad idea. Disappointed, I turned to follow my trail back, and to my surprise, Hitmonlee was getting closer. I didn't understand how walking in the opposite direction I was just going brought me closer and closer to my target, but I didn't question it. Perhaps it was glitchy, and fortunately, that was in my favor, or so I thought. I grinned, as the one step quickly turned into no steps, indicating that the Pokemon was right near me. I stopped and waited for the sweet, victorious vibration of my phone, and sure enough, it came. But something was wrong. Very wrong. First of all, Hitmonlee was brown. Whatever just popped up next to me on my screen was an ugly gray. I zoomed in and noticed that it didn't have any eyes. It was just a large blob with arms that stood up with two very long legs. I tapped on it to catch it, and my camera turned on. The arrows indicated that it was to my left. I spun my phone around until I was pointing back in the direction of the clearing. My heart raced as I frantically looked at the screen for something, but there was nothing there. Just a lone Pokeball waiting to catch whatever I had just found. I'm still not sure why I did this. It wouldn't have helped, but instinctively, I flipped on my flashlight and immediately wish I hadn't. Whatever stood before me was neither human nor Pokemon. I was terrified. It had these two awful sunken holes the size of a beehive that might have had eyes if it had any. Its entire body was made up of this gray, rotten flesh that made me just want to hurl just looking at it. I don't know how long I stood there, paralyzed with fear, before I noticed its body started separating at the abdomen to reveal thousands of tiny teeth that looked like the horrid legs of a centipede. Then it screamed. If I wasn't running before, I sure was running now. I was letting out these panic whimpers as I tried to navigate my way back home. With all the roots and rocks, I knew at one point I was going to trip, and that would be the end of me. Immediately after having that thought, my foot caught something hard and I hit the ground, throwing my phone out ahead of me. I started crying as I heard the sound of branches snapping and getting closer. I could see the headlines already. 19-year-old murdered in the woods while playing Pokemon Go. At that point, I must have been pretty delusional because something screamed in my head that I should grab my phone and throw a Pokeball at it. A Pokeball at that thing? When you have nothing to lose, you're willing to try just about anything. So I scrambled over to my phone, held it up right in front of it like a holy cross. I flipped on the flashlight and focused my phone on the screen. It's just a game. It's just a game, I repeated to myself. Suddenly, it leaped towards me. I swiped my phone screen and closed my eyes, feeling ridiculous for what I had just done. And then I heard it, the sound of something being captured. I opened my eyes to see nothing laying ahead of me, except for a couple of rocks and twigs. But on my screen, there was a Pokeball. You know that anxious feeling you get when you're down to just a few Pokeballs, but there's a CP-428 dugong? Well, imagine that, but add 100 times more terror and panic, and you have what I was feeling. I prayed and prayed for whatever I had just caught would stay that way. I listened carefully, eyes closed. 1 tick, 2 ticks, 3 ticks. I caught it. My mind couldn't process what had just happened. I just laid there on the ground, sobbing and shaking from whatever the hell I had just experienced. Eventually, I realized I didn't want to spend another second in these stupid woods, so I got up and checked out my phone. I started to run, but quickly stopped from the jolting pain that shot up my leg. I must have twisted my ankle pretty bad from the fall. I hobbled back home as quickly as my crippled foot would take me, and collapsed on the couch. The next morning, I wanted to believe that I had dreamed the whole thing, but the pain in my foot told me that I hadn't. I then decided to check my phone, so I started up Pokemon Go and checked my recent Pokemon, and my heart sank. The thing that I saw yesterday was now on my phone. I summoned up the courage to tap on it, and it brought me to the stat screen like other Pokemon, but everything, including its name, was just there like a weird scratch symbols. It looked just as terrible as it did last night. Disgusted, I decided that I had enough of this stupid game and quickly deleted it. This was way too real for me. I was done catching Pokemon, but we all know that's not true. You can't just quit Pokemon Go. Sure enough, I downloaded it again 3 days later and made a new account. This game is just too much. But I want to warn you guys, there is something sinister about this game, and I experienced it firsthand. I love playing it so much, but I feel like I'm being put in danger. I was still a little bit skeptical that the whole thing even happened to me. I went back on the trail with some friends today to check it out. When we got to the clearing, we found something incredibly creepy that I think may have helped explain what happened. I noticed on my screen that the coughing had popped up again on my nearby list. I still don't even have one yet, and I really want it. It's almost midnight, but I figure I'll just go outside for a little bit. I won't go far. I mean, I gotta catch 'em all, right?